Some good news to talk about. That sounds like, not surprising to us, but there's a couple articles talking about how much money is going into the local economies just from Airbnb. This is an Airbnb article, so they're only calculating the money going into the local economies, supporting entrepreneurs in those areas, supporting local governments, some of these smaller governments. But let's dive into this one on the amount of money being spent in the U.S. economy from Airbnb.
Yeah, I mean, we're saying this is from the Airbnb newsroom. Hosts and guests boost U.S. economy by a record $93 billion in 2025. So that is a large number there. As travel by hosts and guests generated more than $93 billion in economic activity across the U.S. in 2025, the highest level on record. Visitor spending helped support more than 1.1 million U.S. jobs, as 46% of hosts say hosting cover rising cost of living. There are a lot more deeper details in there, but I think the key points here that we got to kind of lay it out there is obviously we're looking at over $26 billion in total tax revenue, right, across the United States. And if you look at that article specifically, there's a pretty cool little map, and you can see by revenue, by taxable income, by jobs, what each one of those markets. Florida, for example, is massive. You know what I mean? And you can see how much revenue it's bringing to that state, to that part of the economy, the taxes generating. I'm all about rules and regulations. Right. I'm all about I'm the president of my HOA at my primary. And guess what? We don't allow short-term rentals. Right. And it's our covenants, and that's OK. Right. I'm not anti-STRs, and I'm not for everybody should be able to do it everywhere they are. Right. So I'm all about that. And this just shows that, done well, and as a professional host, the professional business model continues to improve. I think we'll continue to see this infrastructure increase.
Yeah, and as we talk about kind of the little bit of a shaky economy, always in the news, things that are going on with the labor markets. I mean, just Airbnb alone estimates 1.1 million labor jobs, $56 million going, or 54 billion into labor income across those 1.1 million jobs. I mean, that's a lot of work, and it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of tax revenue and infrastructure. And a lot of this is going to some smaller areas that could really use it. When you looked at that map, obviously you saw Florida was massive. California has a lot, but really it's well spread out throughout the US. I mean, this is money going into a lot of those backyard resort communities, a lot of those economies that could really use a lot of these jobs coming in. And so I think that a lot of local municipalities are recognizing not just the tax infrastructure, but also the job growth and the labor force being supported in a lot of these areas from this asset class. I was watching we were just watching some movies over the weekend, and we were on Hulu watching some TV and some movies, and the ads were coming up, and a lot of the ads were for short-term rentals, right? Obviously, we've seen the Airbnb ads, we've seen the Vrbo ads. You're starting to see hotels.com, and their entire hotel.com ad didn't show one hotel. All it showed was vacation rentals. Right. Expedia, same thing, vacation rentals. And so it is something that is very much, accommodation that the consumer is saying, we like this. Obviously, we always say hotels, short-term rentals, completely different markets. If I'm a business traveler, if I'm going in and out of for an event or something, a lot of times hotels work better for me. But when they're advertising now for vacation travelers, short-term rentals are very much the preferred accommodation choice there. And we're seeing how it's supporting a lot of these economies across the US. And I think it's something that we need to pay attention to. Those of you that are always listening, just know when we are referencing articles and stuff, Jake, you're putting those in the show notes, right? Yeah. Those will all be in the show notes along with the property. So you can go reference some of that stuff.
And another point to your hotel is, this is in this article here, is that 63% of US census tracts are home to active Airbnb listings, but no hotels, right? And there'd be certain markets, there are no hotels, right? And you see a lot of those destination markets outside the big ones, they're not a hotel market, right? Yeah. And if you're going to vacation there, you're going to be in a vacation rental or short-term rental of some sort.
Right. Yep. And so, but definitely a preferred accommodation, and sometimes the only option for some of these local areas that really supports those local economies. You really shut it down if you turn, you say, hey, we can't do short-term rentals here because it doesn't allow anybody to come in because you just don't have the hotels in there.